Hi class, in this video we're going to look at using a combo box and a menu strip and some common dialog controls that are available to Windows applications that makes things nice and consistent and easy for us to use. We're going to come back to our menu. We're going to start out with this gardening guide application that we'll be creating. The steps for this begin on page 613 in your textbook. I'm going to bring up our last project and close it. Now before I do so, I've been bad. I have not saved it to TFS. It's still running. So I will stop it, and in my Solution Explorer, right click on my solution and check it in. Not checking, check in. Now we'll check that in. And when I get a successful message, I'm going to close this solution. Now I like to start with an empty Visual Studio. Visual Studio 2017 is great about asking you if you want to add to your existing solution. In the past, Visual Studio did not, and you could accidentally get multiple unrelated projects into the same solution, which could be kind of messy and make things hard to find. So always be sure that you know where things are and where you're putting things, and your life will be a lot easier. I'm going to create another new project. This is going to be a Windows Forms app, and it's going to be this gardening guide. And I think it's called Garden Form in our textbook. So we'll use that same name. And I want to save it to our practice projects again. Now the gardening guide, like our previous application, we're going to set up some default values on our form level. My text property is going to say gardening guide. I want to change my back color. Again, they're using a blue. It's a little darker than what I need. And we'll set our fore color to the yellow that they like. Change my font. Make it about 12 point. And then I'm going to size down my form a little bit because those changes kind of increased its size. Now in this application, like our previous one, we're going to have a message down at the bottom that's going to indicate status. We're going to have a drop-down list, which we'll implement as a combo box in C# that will be a list of flowers. We're going to have a list box that will be a list of trees. Up at the top, we'll have a heading that prompts the user to mark their selection. So let's look at our combo box first. Now our combo box is just a lot like a list box. Let's go find that control. I'm going to put it on here. The difference about a combo box is we think of it as a drop-down list. It has the arrow to click down to open up the list. When you select an item, then that item is displayed up here in this text area. So by default, a combo box really only allows you to select one thing, right? Because you can't fit more than one up there in that list box. That's the way it works. Now, when we're working with a combo box, we're going to have a lot of different events that are available to us. In our last application, the only event we worked with our list box was the selected index changed event. You'll find that all of your different controls can have many different events associated with them that you might feel that you need to add some code 4. Now we're going to do the same thing here with our combo box, that we could look at the selected index changed. We could also look at whether the text was changed if we allowed people to type text into the combo box, and we could catch then the text that they typed in. Another option we would have is key press, and that option is fired whenever anybody presses any key. So any keystroke, it can be a little bit more than what we're expecting. Okay, so I'm going to first add this combo box. Let me jump ahead just a bit and get to the right spot here. See what we've named everything. For our combo box, like I said, it's going to be our list of flowers. So we're going to name it with a special prefix to indicate that it's a combo box, and that'll be CMBO, and we're going to name it CMBO flowers. Now, some other things about the list box. If we look at some of our default properties, we can anchor this up to a certain spot in the screen. We could set a different back color. We can change the drop-down style. Now, our drop-down style is a little different with the combo box than with the list box. We do have simple drop-down list, drop-down, and drop-down list. The difference is, though, that with a drop-down, our user is allowed to type a new entry into the list. With drop-down list, they're limited to choosing items from the existing list. So let's change it to drop-down list. Just like our list box, the collections or the items property contains our collection, the list of things that will be displayed in this combo box. Let's click on the ellipsis to bring up the string collection editor to add some flowers in here. And our flowers, we want roses, orchids, tulips, daisies, asters, and mums. I'm not getting to plant any flowers this summer with all this awesome video production. Now, do we want our combo box items to be sorted? What do you think? Leave it up to you. I think that I would like mine to be sorted. It's always easier to find things if they're in order, right? Okay, so let's run this and see what this combo box looks like so you can see. Minimize back here. Okay, so here it is. We have our drop-down list. Pick one, it shows up in the list. You can see how that works. Looks great. Now we need to add some other controls to our form to get everything situated the way we would like to run our application. So in our design mode here, we're ready to get everything going. Now, our form, I really would like to rename that. So let's rename it here in Solution Explorer. Instead of form1.cs, right-click and rename. And we want to name this gardening form. Make sure the .cs is still there and say yes, we want to rename everything. It's great. Now we can also rename our program.cs file. Let's do that. And we'll rename it. And let's rename it main class, like Rebel was doing. Okay, there's a little bit of consistency there. And yes, we want to rename everything. Remember, our main method is still running here, still kicking everything off, and we just rename that CS file that contains that main method and the class associated with it to be main class. And remember, it just loads up an instance of our form. I'm going to go ahead and run again. Make sure I didn't mess anything up. Looks good. My renames didn't destroy anything. That's good. Now back to our form. We were adding some additional components here. I'd like to add our list box that's going to contain all our trees. It's going to kind of go beside this combo box here. So let's find a list box. We'll put it here. And this is going to be named LSTBX trees. Now, some properties that we want to change for our list box here. Let's go down and first of all add our items. In our collection editor, we can type our tree names, and we want maple, oak, palm, pine, spruce, and walnut. And then we want to check our mode here, our selection mode. We want to change this to multi-extended, like we did before, where our control clicks work. Now in our list box, there's one other property that we'd like to change that is kind of neat, and we'll find it here. It's wanting us to find that tooltip. They took that away with 2017. I don't see anything. So we will bypass that step. Now, when we're looking at our list box, it should already load up our entries. I think those are all of the properties that we need to change for that. Let's add our heading labels. I'm going to grab a label here, and I'm going to put this one above our combo box. And this label is going to say flowers. For this application, we're going to give this label a name. Sometimes we won't name our labels because they can be insignificant. But this one we're going to name LBL flower. And put it a little bit kind of, I don't know where you want it, you can decide. Now we need another label. And this label is going to go above our trees. And in the same way, we'll name it LBL trees. And we'll make its text property say trees. Another label above all of this. I might not have enough room, so I can select all of these items. Remember, I can use that rubber band selection where I start up on one corner and press and hold my mouse button, and then I can move all of these items all at once as a group. Get them out of my way a little bit. Add a new label up here. And this label is going to tell everybody to make their selection. So let's see, its text property is going to be make your selection. I think I'll make it bold or something, because since it's supposed to be up here above everything else. Sure, you're bold. Okay, so now we've got a lot of our form built. We need a little bit more information. We want some results down at the bottom, if you remember. So let's do some things here and get our form the rest of the way set up. I'm going to sneak a look. Yeah, down under our flowers, we're going to have a label that says flower preference and a text box underneath that. And we're going to put whatever flower they select into that text box. So let's get another label. And this label is going to say flower preference. And we want to name it. And we're going to name it LBL Flower Answer, because this is going to be the flower that they picked when we asked them to pick a flower. Now, we want another label somewhere around here that's going to be our trees. Let's get our flower fixed the rest of the way. I'm looking at the end here. To back up because I don't see what they've called it, and we want to make sure that we're being consistent. Under our flower preference label, I'll put a text box. I kind of want this text box to be lined up with that combo box, and I'm going to name this text box TXT BX flower result. Now, if I want those two to be lined up, I can select them both. So I have the text box selected. I'll press Control and select the flowers combo box. Now, these tools become available are alignment tools, and if you look at your view menu, you can find these under other windows, and you have to look very, very hard for them. Do you see it? It's a test. You'll have to find it. Mine are showing, so I'll let you find it. But with this alignment toolbar, what I'm looking for is it gives me all these different options like align lefts. That's great. Now I can even use this make same size to make sure that my two controls are the same size. I could add my two labels here and also align their lefts. And I could align those to the others, so I can select as many items as I want to use this layout toolbar. It's really great and really helpful. Now, underneath our flowers, we have our flower preference. But there's a few more things that we want to add here. We want to add one of those result areas down at the bottom. Hang on, and we'll do that because they're going to make it super interesting for us. Before we do that, I want to add a tree preference area. So my form is not quite big enough. I'm going to make it a little bit longer. Make this list box a little bit smaller. Move these up. That's pretty good. Now I want a label for my tree preference heading. And we'll make it say tree preferences. And then underneath that, we want a text box to hold those tree preferences. Oops, we need to name this label though. We're going to name it LBL Tree Answer. And we're going to put a text box underneath that label to hold those values. Now this text box, if you remember, we're going to allow multiple selection of these trees. So we would like our text box to be able to hold enough data to display them. First of all, let's name this text box. Listbox tree preference, is that what they want? I'm going to make sure here. They've got some code, and I just want to make sure it matches up with what we're doing so that you can look at it and refer to it as time goes on. And it means less and less to you. Oh no, they want this to be TXTBX result trees. And it's interesting when we're using the textbook, we can see where sometimes they lose consistency. And the same thing can happen to us. So it's important to try to maintain that. Now, because we can pick multiple trees, we want this text box to be taller than just one line. So I'm going to find the multi-line property and change it from false to true. Now my text box can be multiple lines tall, and I'll spread it out just a little bit to hold some additional entries more than once. I'd like a scroll bar, I think, on this thing, and I'm going to change it to horizontal. And now that should be no scroll bar unless it needs one, and then it should show it to us if it needs it. Now I want to fix again our alignment here. I'll choose this list box first because I want it to be our controller, you know, the control that controls things, and then our text box. And I'm going to choose make same size and align lefts. That looks better. Not too bad. Now, is there anything else that we need to add? We've got our labels. Oh yeah, we need our output down at the bottom. So we're going to use a label this time. If you remember last time we used a text box. It's a matter of preference. I'm going to show you how to use both types. I want this label to go all the way across the screen, but you know, labels, they just auto adjust. So I want to change that. I'm going to change this auto size setting to false because I want to be able to make this label all the way across, and it is. That's good. Now I want to name this label LBL output, and we're going to start out when our application loads with our label saying something nice like add water, please. Okay, so there's our label. I might move mine up just a little bit. There we go, it's fitting in good. Now, I think that's all the controls we need on our form for right now. Let's see if we can create some magic here with it. First of all, let's save all and run to see what it looks like. We see that our flowers combo box gives us the option to pick flowers. We can pick one or many trees. That's about it. Great, let's make them do something. Okay, first our combo box. We want to add some code so that when somebody clicks on an item in our flowers list, it shows in our flower preferences text box. So let's double click our combo box to create that event procedure. Now looking at our event procedure, it created a selected index changed method for our combo box named CMBO flowers. So that's perfect. That means if somebody picks a different item in our list, well, if they do that, we want to update our text box that shows our flower result, and we want to set its text property equal to whatever they've picked in that combo box. So if you remember in our last video when we looked at the list box, we saw that the .text property showed us whatever the selected item's text was. Let's see if that creates any change. Now when I select a flower, should see it down here in my flower preference. Awesome. Okay, next I want to create an event procedure that has to do with them selecting something in our trees. So our tree list is going to be a little bit different here. Let's try it. In our tree list box, we'll double click to create that event procedure. Just like we did before, we're going to create an initialized string to hold this list of items that has been selected or could have been. We're going to use our text box text property to hold that list. So we don't need to have another string variable like we did last time. We're going to use a for each loop. And again, for each of the items that are in our list, we're going to do some work. Now we're going to use a different property this time to determine which items in our list were selected. We're going to use the selected indices property instead of the selected items. That means we're going to get an integer back for each item that was selected. We'll call that integer I because we're going to use it as an index. And for each of those integers in our listbox trees dot selected indices, notice we have several different selected properties, but our selected indices is going to give us a list of all of the different index values. Now, each of those index values then we can use to access an item in our list box to add to our text box. So our text box result trees, if you remember, we made it tall so that it could hold more than one entry. So we're going to add to it in this for each loop. And what we're going to add to it is the item in our list box that was selected based on that index I. And then we're going to add a space. So again, if you remember last time we used selected items and we were able to just say for this string item in selected items, add that to our list box or text box because it was a string. In this scenario, we're asking for the index value back for each item that was selected. So we have to use that index value to get that item's value from that list. Let's see how that's working. Now I should be able to select flowers. And if I select trees, I should see the different things happening here. It's doing all sorts of weird stuff, isn't it? My flower went away when I clicked on a tree. We'll be looking at stuff. Looks like Visual Studio 2017 bugs of some sort. We shall see as we get with it. Now, looking at our application, things are working pretty close. I'd like to be able to allow users to type an entry into that flowers list box to add new things. Let's run it and see if they can. Can they type? No, we made that selection mode so that they couldn't. Let's change that. On our flowers combo box, let's look at our properties here, and I want to find that selection mode. What do we call it here for this one? Drop down style. Resize these a little bit. And let's make this just be drop down. Now let's run it. Oh, now it looks like I can type something in there. I can. So I want to add a new event procedure that allows our users to type in a new flower, and then we'll save it for them in the list. Let's do that. I'm going to go to my code window because I'm going to create this method by hand, and then we'll associate it with the event of somebody typing in that text variable. So let's try it in our code. Now, remember, we have lots of ways to get to our code. We could just press F7. Oops, I'm not clicked on my form. I can right click and say view code, and why F7 won't work for me. And that's fine. Now, this is going to be associated with our combo box flowers. So I'm going to add this new method here where our flowers combo box method is. I could put some comments in for that. This method fires when a flower is selected. Here's the end. Now let's add a new method. We're going to type it in ourselves. It's going to be a lot like these others, so I'm going to start out using that as a pattern. It's going to be a private void, and it's going to be based on our combo box flowers. Excuse me, and the object or the event that we want here is if somebody types in text, so text changed. Now we need to pass some parameters to that, and these are system parameters. So I'm just going to copy the same thing that is in the one above a little bit. Event args as E. Okay, so now we've created our own method. Right now we don't have it wired to any sort of thing, any sort of event on our form. So we don't have any way to execute this new method yet. We'll fix that. But in the meantime, if somebody does type in this text box, let's update our result and say this is their favorite. So in this case, we're not going to be necessarily adding it to the combo box, but we're going to display it down in the bottom in our text box as the flower that they choose. Let's put a comment on that. We'll say this method fires when a flower is entered. And then we can go down here one more and we'll put a comment in for our Listbox trees. This method is fired when items are selected from our trees. Okay, so now let's see if this is working. Let's run it. Test our addition here. And I'll put in a bunch of the flowers. Didn't do much for me, did it? That's a thing. Oh, yeah, we said we had to wire that new method to an event. Let's go see how to do that. First of all, look to your form in Form Design and click on the control we're concerned with. And we want to fire off our new method when somebody types in this flowers combo box. Well, where we're going to go is in our properties screen. So far, these last two icons on our toolbar, I told you we would get to later. Well, now's the time. Right now, we're looking at the properties pages for this combo box, and that's what we're used to, all the properties. If we click on the lightning bolt, we go to the actions or the events that are associated with this control. We see we already have one for the selected index changed event. We're firing off our selected index changed method. They're wired together. Now we want to wire up a new one, and that's if somebody changes the text, right? So here we've got it, text changed. That's the event we're concerned about. If the text is changed, we want to run our new text changed event method. There we go. Now we've wired that method to that event. So now if we run, we should be able to type something in here. Oh, look, it's showing up in my tree preferences. Something isn't right. Check some things here. That's my trees. Do I have some Visual Studio updates that need to be installed? I'm going to save all. Flower preference, TXTBX flower. LBL flower. TXTG, LBL, TXT trees. I don't see anything being crossed over for it to be behaving so weirdly. Let's try running it again. It's going in the wrong place. So I think that at this point, hopefully yours is working. I'll be right back for our next video where we'll add to our application here. I'm going to restart my computer, assuming that some Windows updates must be pending that are making things act a little weird. And hopefully yours isn't acting that way, but we'll pick it up in the next video. Thank you.